方向开道铺路，我们日日要向前前进。
A week before January 2017, Tzu Chi sent a medical team to Jordan to provide free medical services for the needy and Syrian refugees there. Being born in a refugee camp, this toddler has never seen an egg before. She was delighted with the eggs Tzu Chi volunteers gave her. Tzu Chi members also visited Prince Hassan to thank him for his support. As of 2017, Tzu Chi has been serving in Jordan for 20 years. In Serbia, Tzu Chi volunteers once again work together to serve the refugees stranded there. This time, the volunteers gave out undergarments, as well as instant noodles provided by an Indonesian food enterprise to the refugees. The volunteers also prepared hot meals for them. In February, Tzu Chi organized nearly 20 concerts across Taiwan to fundraise for Syrian refugees in different parts of the world. The images played at the concerts deeply touched the hearts of people in the audience. People from all walks of life took part in the events, including singers, Buddhist Dharma masters, police officers, entrepreneurs, and Tzu Chi members. In March, Tzu Chi held a free clinic in Cambodia. At an aid distribution, Tzu Chi volunteers gave out rice from Taiwan to over 2,000 low-income families. Inspired by Tzu Chi volunteers' love, many locals donated their spare change to help those worse off. In Zimbabwe, Tzu Chi volunteers went to a village hit hard by floods to give out rice to those affected and cooked hot meals for them. They even helped prepare a path and built drainage pipes for the village. In Africa, over 600 local volunteers from South Africa, Swaziland, and Namibia gathered together for a 6-day retreat held in Durban. Back in 2012, the volunteers in South Africa organized a team responsible for promoting Tzu Chi's missions in Africa. Thanks to their effort, as of 2017, Tzu Chi's work has been carried out in 7 African countries, including Namibia. In Ecuador, after heavy rainfall caused widespread flooding, Tzu Chi volunteers from 7 countries arrived to organize a Cash for Work program, inviting the locals to clean up the affected areas.
Yo lo que quiero es trabajar para seguir adelante. Nos fuimos a trabajar sin desayunar. Para eso, para la comida.
Limpiando la casita ahí. Para poder salir adelante. Santana va a salir adelante.
Every day, hundreds of locals took part in the Cash for Work program to help clean up their own communities. Back in March, Tzu Chi volunteers were also in Ecuador, breaking ground for a church damaged by an earthquake in 2016.
Unas monjas se han dado cuenta de que había monjas aquí también. Ha tocado su corazón.
Aunque no esté aquí presente, pero yo sé que este saludo va a llegar de todo corazón porque tenemos el corazón rebosante de alegría por este momento que nos está Gracias de todo corazón, Fundación Sushi. Sushi ya forma parte de nuestra familia y del Ecuador entero.
Yo quiero ser voluntaria de Sushi. Los amo.
In May, to honor Buddha Day, Mother's Day, and Tzuchi Day, Tzuchi volunteers held Buddha Day ceremonies in 40 countries and regions around the world. In Taiwan, the first ceremonies were held in 4 different locations at the same time. This year, the ceremony in Taipei included a drum and bell presentation. The ceremony drew over 30,000 participants, including firefighters, police officers, foreign dignitaries, the general public, and Dharma masters from several monasteries across Taiwan. In June, unusually heavy rains caused severe disasters across Taiwan. Tzu immediately set up a disaster relief coordination center at its headquarters.
像心地心狭隘，这都是我们一个都很难堪的了，何况半天，何况呢一个晚上。
Tzu members quickly mobilized to bring care to those affected.
我吃了我第一杯菜。
The volunteers also helped to clean up houses affected by floods. To build a retaining wall for a temple in the mountains, even the female volunteers helped to carry heavy bags of sand up the stairs step by step. In a dark, inundated basement, Tzu volunteers worked together to clean out the water and debris, bucket after bucket. Most of the volunteers are in their 60s or even 70s. Although they were tired out, all of them served willingly with joy, despite being covered in mud from head to toe. In the Philippines, Tzu's medical volunteers went to Bohol Island to hold a free eye clinic for the locals.
We're so lucky that maybe soon he can see again and go back to school.
21-year-old Regine Lee suffered from severe scoliosis. With the help of Tzu, she came to Taiwan to receive surgery.
At saka, papasalamat po ako kay Master Ching, lalo na po sa Chuchi.
In Ormoc, after Tzu's typhoon relief efforts in 2013, many locals have been inspired to serve as Tzu volunteers and can now conduct charity work on their own. To further promote recycling in Ormoc, Tzu signed an MOU with the city government to conduct recycling work in over 100 districts across the city.
And we're very happy that Chuchi is behind this program.
The local volunteers even composed a song to encourage everyone to take up recycling. In July, Canada was hit by wildfires. Tzu immediately went to a shelter to provide traditional Chinese medicine services to evacuees. As of 2017, Tzu has been serving in Canada for 25 years.
The Tzu Foundation, what you do with purity of heart and with compassion, regardless of religion, culture, or even border.
In Myanmar, monsoon rains caused flooding across large parts of the country. After a flu outbreak, a national health official wrote a letter to Tzu Chi asking for help. Tzu Chi doctors from Taiwan soon went to Myanmar to share their experiences in fighting against epidemics with the local hospitals. In Taiwan and Malaysia, Tzu Chi members also quickly shipped medical supplies to Myanmar. In Vietnam, Tzu Chi volunteers held 3 distributions to give out water tanks to those affected by drought. The water tanks have a special feature.
Vậy bên hội em mới thiết kế đây, nó có cái này.
The 3 distributions benefited 500 families lacking clean water for daily use. The volunteers even delivered the water tanks in person. To send the water tanks to an offshore island, the volunteers had to first carry them by boat and unload them one by one before they could finally hand over the water tanks to the local residents. In China, after rainstorms caused severe flooding in Hunan province, Tzu Chi volunteers went to give out portable beds to those affected. In Jilin province, days of heavy rain had also led to flooding. Hearing the news, Tzu Chi volunteers immediately went to help. Over 200 volunteers from other parts of China went to help clean up the homes of those affected. In the U.S., Hurricanes Harvey and Irma devastated different parts of the country, one after the other. In California, the most destructive wildfires on record burned over 1 million acres of land. Master Zheng Yan advised the U.S. volunteers how to help. Tzu Chi members in Taiwan quickly shipped instant rice and thermal blankets to the U.S. for the local volunteers to give out to those affected.
I really need him. I lost everything. I cry for joy for the things you do for us. It just gives me such a warm feeling. You're spreading love and hope.
Their help is very timely, it's very appreciative.
Tzu Chi members worldwide fundraised for Harvey survivors in the U.S. Learning of the devastation left by Hurricane Harvey, a disabled people's performing group from China donated its proceeds from 2 performances to help those affected. Tzu Chi volunteers also brought aid to a Vietnamese community hit by Harvey.
I'm very grateful that you came down to try to make some assistance here.
The U.S. helped Taiwan before. Now, Taiwan pays back.
It's reciprocal. We the United States, helped Taiwan, and now Taiwan is helping the city of Rockport recover.
So we kind of know each other and hey, we're brother.
Government officials expressed their gratitude to Tzu Chi.
The city of Wharton, with our appreciation, we're going to dedicate the month of October as Tzu Chi Foundation Month. It's a little honor.
In Haiti, Tzu broke ground for an office in Port-au-Prince. Back in 2010, a major earthquake hit Haiti. Tzu's relief efforts since then have inspired many locals to volunteer with Tzu.
L'organisation Tzu d'être avec eux tout au long de ma vie jusqu'à ce que je meure.
Tzu volunteers have also left footprints in Central and South America. In Guatemala, they gave out aid to families in need. In Argentina, they distributed stationery to school children. In Chile, they brought care to those affected by wildfires. In Brazil, they held free clinics in out-of-the-way places. In the Dominican Republic, they gave out uniforms and stationery to students. In Honduras, they provided free medical services to the poor and ill. In Venezuela, Tzu's first volunteer, Wu Yuanyun, held several aid distributions for the needy and guided the locals to give of themselves. In Sierra Leone, torrential rain-induced floods and mudslides claimed over 1,000 lives. In Taiwan, Tzu members quickly discussed how to help the survivors, including many orphans who have lost their parents to the disaster. A week after the disaster, Tzu members were already in Sierra Leone working with other aid groups to give out hot meals to the locals. In September, the Indonesian Navy invited Tzu on board a hospital ship to hold free clinics for offshore islanders. Since 2003, Tzu has been providing aid to this Islamic boarding school in Indonesia. The students have even learned to speak Mandarin.
商人，我很爱你。你什么时候来到印尼？我很想你们都来这边。
As of 2017, Damai TV Indonesia has been broadcasting for 10 years. Thanks to the station's reports, many locals have received the help they needed. For example, having learned that children in a village had to wade through a river to go to school, Tzu built a bridge for them.
所以我们就跟当地的政府跟军方合作，就把那个座桥就建好了。
This girl was born shortly after the bridge was built. Now she can go to school safely every day. In China, a housing community Tzu built in Jiangsu province was inaugurated. Back in 2016, a tornado accompanied by a thunderstorm devastated a village where the descendants of Confucius lived. 3 months later, Tzu decided to help rebuild their homes.
工程质量，我们都处处感受到基金会同仁们的用心，感受到他们的大爱。
维系传承孔子的仁爱与教育。
In Turkey, the new school building Tzu rented for Syrian children in Sultan Gazi, Istanbul opened. Back in August, Tzu members from Taiwan went to Turkey to sign a lease with the school building's landlord.
Yüreğimden katılıyorum çünkü o duyguları ben sizden daha fazla yaşıyorum.
With the new school building, these Syrian children can receive an education and hope for a better future. In Mexico, after a magnitude 7.1 earthquake hit, Tzu volunteers immediately mobilized to survey the damage.
Tzu, is an organization help a lot of disaster. I need your help. Okay. Give the list, the name, address, then we go check. No duplication, no cheating.
Moved by Tzu's effort, many locals were inspired to help. The volunteers conducted a thorough survey of the disaster areas. Even Tzu's first volunteer in Ecuador went to help.
I come from Ecuador. It's my first time volunteering internationally.
The volunteers also visited quake survivors from door to door to bring them comfort, ask them what help they needed, and share information about Tzu Chi with them. Volunteer training was also held for the locals.
Y esa es la mejor manera de darnos cuenta de que realmente
Lo que se aprende en esto es que con amor se pueden hacer muchas cosas. No se puede en este mundo vivir con el odio.
At the training session, a volunteer shared Tzu Chi's humble beginnings with everyone and encouraged them to do good. In October, over 400 members of TIMA, or Tzu Chi International Medical Association, from 20 countries and regions, gathered in Taiwan for their annual convention.
追随典范，莫忘誓约，再造人间净土。
Tzu Chi's medical mission started in 1972 when it set up a free clinic in Hualien, eastern Taiwan, providing medical services to the poor and ill. In November, in the wake of widespread flooding in Thailand, Tzu Chi volunteers held 7 aid distributions to give out rice and other supplies to those affected. Over 3,000 families received Tzu Chi's aid. The volunteers also donated boats to the locals so they could get around more easily. In Malaysia, after the worst flooding in a decade hit Penang, Tzu Chi volunteers went to help clean up the affected areas. By 2017, Tzu Chi has provided free dialysis in Malaysia for 20 years.
But the way you treat people like a family is something should be learned by everybody.
这本是我们第二间的家了。
In Kuala Lumpur, the Tzu Chi International School broke ground.
大马的教育事业将进入新的里程碑。
The school will provide education from preschool to pre-college program when it's completed in 2020.
《走过2017年慈济大藏经，慈济人与神